Maya Thompson adjusted the plain blue uniform that felt foreign against her skin. The fabric was rough, nothing like the designer clothes hanging in her walk-in closet at home. She stared at herself in the bathroom mirror of the gas station where she had changed, hardly recognizing the woman looking back at her. Gone were the perfectly styled hair, the manicured nails, and the confident posture of someone who had never worried about money. Instead, she saw someone who could easily blend into the background, exactly what she needed. Her father, Marcus Thompson, had built Thompson Industries from nothing into a billion-dollar empire. The company employed over 10,000 people across multiple buildings, and Marcus had always prided himself on treating his workers fairly. But lately, something had been bothering him. Profits were dropping, employee satisfaction surveys showed concerning results, and there were whispers about problems he couldn't quite pin down. Maya had graduated from Harvard Business School just 6 months ago, and despite her father's offers to place her directly into a management position, she had insisted on understanding the business from the ground up. When Marcus mentioned his concerns about the company culture during one of their weekly dinners, Maya had proposed something radical. "Let me go undercover," she had said, setting down her fork with determination. "Not as your daughter, not as some executive trainee. Let me apply for a regular job and see what's really happening." Marcus had initially laughed, thinking she was joking. His daughter had grown up in mansions, attended private schools, and had never worked a day of manual labor in her life. But Maya's expression remained serious. "Dad, you taught me that a leader needs to understand every level of their organization. How can I ever truly help this company if I don't know what it's like to be a regular employee?" After days of discussion and careful planning, they had crafted Maya's new identity. She would be Maria Santos, a recent immigrant who needed work to support her sick mother. The story was believable enough to explain any nervousness or unfamiliarity with company procedures. Now, standing in that gas station bathroom, Maya felt the weight of what she was about to do. She had never cleaned an office building in her life, never punched a time clock, never worried about making ends meet. But she was determined to see her father's company through the eyes of its most invisible workers. The Thompson Industries headquarters building towered 43 stories into the Seattle sky, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun. Maya had been in the building countless times, but always through the executive elevator that went straight to the top floors. Today, she walked through the employee entrance in the basement, following signs to the custodial services office. The basement was a different world entirely. The polished marble and artwork of the upper floors were replaced by concrete walls and fluorescent lighting. The air smelled of cleaning chemicals and something else, the subtle scent of people who worked hard for their money. "You must be Maria," said a woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. This was Sandra Williams, the custodial supervisor who had hired Maya over the phone based on her fake references. "I'm Sandra. Welcome to the team." Sandra's handshake was firm, her eyes sharp and assessing. Maya had practiced speaking with a slight accent during her preparation, and she kept her voice soft and humble. "Thank you. Mrs. Williams, I am very grateful for this opportunity." "Just Sandra is fine, honey. Now let me show you around and introduce you to some of the others." The custodial break room was cramped with mismatched chairs around 2 small tables. A refrigerator hummed in the corner, its surface covered with handwritten notes and family photos. Several women sat drinking coffee, their voices stopping as Sandra entered with Maya. "Everyone, this is Maria Santos. She's starting today." Sandra's introduction was brief but warm. "Maria, these are some of your co-workers. That's Janet, Rose, Carmen, and Lisa." The women offered polite smiles and hellos, but Maya could sense their caution. New employees came and went frequently in this job, and she realized they were probably waiting to see if she would last more than a few weeks. Janet, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, spoke first. "Where are you from, Maria?" "Mexico originally," Maya replied, sticking to her prepared story. "I came here 2 years ago with my mother, but she became very sick. I need this job to help pay for her treatments." The women's expressions softened immediately. Rose, who appeared to be around Maya's age, reached over to pat her shoulder. "We understand, honey. Most of us are working to support family too. You'll fit in just fine here." Sandra led Maya through the building's lower levels, explaining the cleaning procedures and showing her where supplies were stored. The work was divided among different teams, with each person responsible for specific floors and areas. Maya would be assigned to floors 15 through 20, the middle management offices. The work isn't easy, Sandra explained as they walked through the supply room. These offices need to be spotless every morning when the employees arrive. That means we work nights starting at 6 p.m. and finishing around 2 a.m. You'll have breaks, but the pace is steady. Think you can handle it? Maya nodded, though privately she wondered if she truly could. She had never worked an 8-hour shift of physical labor, never had to be on her feet for that long doing repetitive tasks. Good. Lisa will train you for the first few days. She's been here 3 years and knows the routine better than anyone. As evening approached, Maya found herself standing in the supply closet, loading a cart with cleaning products, vacuum attachments, and garbage bags. The other women moved efficiently around her, their movements practiced and quick. They had done this routine hundreds of times before. Lisa appeared beside her cart, smiling encouragingly. Ready for your first night? Maya gripped the handle of her cart, feeling the weight of what she was about to discover. In just a few hours, she would begin to see her father's company through completely different eyes. She had no idea that what she would witness over the coming days would shock her so deeply that it would lead to the firing of nearly half the management staff. Yes, Maya said quietly. I'm ready. As they pushed their carts toward the elevator, Maya caught a glimpse of her reflection in the polished metal doors. Maria Santos looked determined and humble, ready to work hard for her paycheck. Maya Thompson, the CEO's daughter, had disappeared completely. The transformation was about to begin. The elevator climbed slowly to the 15th floor, and Maya felt her stomach tighten with each passing number. Lisa stood beside her, humming softly while checking items off a laminated list clipped to her cart. For Lisa, this was just another ordinary Tuesday night. For Maya, it was the beginning of an education that would change everything she thought she knew about her father's company. The key thing to remember, Lisa said as the elevator doors opened, is to stay invisible. The night security guards don't bother us much, but sometimes executives work late. When that happens, we clean around them and try not to disturb their important business. The 15th floor was dimly lit, with only emergency lighting illuminating the hallways. Maya had never seen these offices at night, and the familiar corporate environment looked almost eerie in the shadows. Lisa flicked on the overhead lights, and suddenly the space came alive with the soft hum of fluorescent bulbs. We start with the trash, Lisa explained, pulling on latex gloves. Empty every bin, replace the liners, then move on to dusting and vacuuming. The bathrooms are last because they take the most time. Maya followed Lisa's lead, amazed by how efficiently the experienced cleaner moved through the offices. While Maya struggled to figure out how to properly replace a garbage bag liner, Lisa had already emptied 6 bins and was moving on to wiping down desks. Don't worry, Lisa said, noticing Maya's frustrated expression. It took me weeks to get fast at this. The important thing is to do it right, not quick. As they worked their way through the offices, Maya began to notice things that had been invisible to her before. The executives' offices were spacious and well-appointed, with expensive furniture and artwork on the walls. But the cubicles where mid-level employees worked were cramped and outdated. Some had broken chairs that had clearly been reported multiple times but never fixed. Others had computer equipment that looked like it belonged in a museum. In one cubicle, Maya found a handwritten note taped to the monitor. Submitted repair request for broken chair. 3rd time. Request number 2847, 3156, 98 still waiting. The note was dated 6 months ago. Lisa, Maya said quietly, do you see a lot of broken furniture and equipment that doesn't get fixed? Lisa glanced around nervously before answering. We're not supposed to talk about things like that. Sandra always tells us to focus on our own work and not worry about office politics. But as the night continued, Maya couldn't help but notice more problems. In the break room on the 16th floor, she found a refrigerator that had been unplugged because it was broken, leaving employees with no way to store their lunches. A sign posted nearby read, "Refrigerator repair has been requested. Please be patient while we wait for approval from facilities management." The sign was dated 4 months ago. Around midnight, they encountered their first late-working executive. David Chen, one of the regional directors, was still at his desk when they arrived to clean his office.
Maya recognized him immediately. He had been to several dinner parties at her father's house, but she kept her head down and focused on emptying his trash bin. "Oh."
"You're new," David said, barely looking up from his computer. "What happened to the woman who usually cleans here?" Janet had to leave early tonight, Lisa replied politely. Her daughter got sick. David made a dismissive sound. These people always have some family emergency. I don't know why we can't find more reliable cleaning staff. Maya's hands tightened on the garbage bag, but she forced herself to remain silent. Lisa shot her a warning look, clearly sensing the tension. We'll be quick, Mr. Chen, Lisa said. Sorry to disturb you. As they finished cleaning around David's desk, Maya noticed something that made her blood boil. His desk was covered with expense reports and receipts. Among them, she spotted a bill for a company lunch that cost more than Janet probably made in a week. There was also a receipt for office furniture, a single executive chair that cost $3,000. Meanwhile, Janet was cleaning offices with a broken vacuum cleaner that Sandra had been trying to get replaced for months. When they moved to the next floor, Maya couldn't contain her questions any longer. Lisa, how long has the company been ignoring maintenance requests? Lisa looked uncomfortable. Maria, you seem like a nice person, but you need to understand something. We're invisible here. The people who make decisions don't see us, don't think about us, and definitely don't care about our opinions on how things are run. But surely if someone complained to management, complained to who? Lisa's voice was sharp now. The same managers who approved spending $3,000 on a chair while our vacuum cleaner is held together with duct tape? The same people who can't find money to fix a refrigerator but somehow have budget for catered lunches every other day? Maya was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Has anyone ever tried to organize the cleaning staff? To speak up collectively? Lisa stopped pushing her cart and turned to face Maya directly. 2 years ago, a woman named Patricia tried to organize a meeting with Human Resources. She wanted to discuss some safety concerns and equipment issues. You know what happened to her? Maya shook her head. She was fired the next week. Sandra told us it was because of budget cuts, but we all knew the truth. The message was clear. Keep your head down and do your job or find somewhere else to work. The rest of their shift passed in relative silence, but Maya's mind was racing. She had always known that her father's company was hierarchical. All corporations were. But she had never imagined that the hierarchy was quite so brutal. The contrast between the executives' wasteful spending and the cleaning staff's broken equipment was stark and undeniable. As they finished their last office around 2 in the morning, Maya felt exhausted in a way she had never experienced before. Her feet ached, her back was sore, and her hands were dry from the cleaning chemicals. But the physical discomfort was nothing compared to the emotional weight of what she had discovered. You did well tonight, Lisa said as they returned their carts to the supply room. Better than most new people on their first shift. Thank you for training me, Maya replied. And for being honest about everything. Lisa studied Maya's face carefully. You're not like most of the people who apply for this job. You ask too many questions and you listen too carefully to the answers. That can be dangerous in a place like this. As Maya changed out of her uniform in the basement bathroom, she thought about Lisa's warning. She had only completed 1 shift, and already she had seen enough to understand why her father's employee satisfaction surveys were so poor. The question was, how much worse would it get? Walking to her car in the employee parking garage, Maya felt the weight of her double life settling over her shoulders. In a few hours, she would wake up in her comfortable bed, eat breakfast prepared by the family's housekeeper, and start her day as the privileged daughter of a billionaire CEO. But tonight, she had worked alongside women who struggled to pay rent, whose equipment repair requests were ignored, and who lived in fear of losing their jobs for speaking up about unsafe conditions. The transformation from Maya to Maria was more than just a change of clothes. It was a complete shift in perspective that was already changing her forever. 3 weeks into her undercover assignment, Maya had settled into the rhythm of her double life. During the day, she attended board meetings and strategic planning sessions as Maya Thompson, nodding along as executives discussed efficiency improvements and cost-cutting measures. At night, she transformed into Maria Santos, cleaning the very offices where those decisions were made, witnessing firsthand how those policies affected real people. The contrast was becoming unbearable. On this particular Wednesday night, Maya arrived at work to find the break room buzzing with worried conversation. Carmen was crying softly while Janet rubbed her shoulders, and Rose was pacing back and forth, her face flushed with anger. What's happening? Maya asked Lisa, who was standing near the coffee machine with a grim expression. Carmen's son, Miguel, had an accident at school today, Lisa explained quietly. Broke his arm pretty badly. She needs to take him to the hospital, but if she leaves early again this month, Sandra says she'll have to write her up. Maya's stomach dropped. She's already had 2 write-ups? Her mother has been in and out of the hospital, Rose interjected, overhearing their conversation. Carmen's been taking care of her while working full-time here. She's missed a few days, and apparently that's unacceptable to management. Carmen looked up through her tears. I don't know what to do. Miguel needs surgery, but if I get fired, I won't have health insurance. But if I don't go with him to the hospital... The cruel choice Carmen faced hit Maya like a physical blow. She thought about her own childhood, when her father had dropped everything to rush her to the emergency room for a minor skiing accident.
Money and job security had never been considerations. Carmen was being forced to choose between her child's immediate medical needs and her family's long-term survival. There has to be something we can do, Maya said, her voice tight with emotion.
Like what? Rose snapped. March upstairs and demand they change their policies. We've been down this road before, Maria. The company doesn't care about our families. Sandra appeared in the doorway, her expression stern. What's all this commotion about? We have floors to clean. Sandra, Carmen pleaded, my son is hurt. I just need to... Carmen, we've discussed this. You've already exceeded your allotted sick and personal days. If you leave tonight, I'll have to document it as an unexcused absence. Her child is in the hospital, Maya said before she could stop herself. Sandra's eyes narrowed as she looked at Maya. Maria, you're new here, so let me explain how this works. We have policies for a reason. If I make exceptions for one person, where does it end? It ends with treating people like human beings instead of machines, Maya shot back, her carefully constructed accent slipping slightly. The room went dead silent. Everyone stared at Maya, shocked by her boldness. Sandra's face turned red. Excuse me? Did you just... She's right, Janet said quietly, standing up. This is Carmen's child we're talking about. I don't want to hear another word, Sandra said sharply. Carmen, you have 5 minutes to decide. Either you stay and work your full shift or you leave and face the consequences. Everyone else get to work. Now. As the group dispersed, Maya felt sick to her stomach. She pulled out her phone and, without thinking, sent a quick text to her father. Dad, can you call Sandra Williams in custodial services? Tell her Carmen Santos has a family emergency and should be excused without penalty. Her father's response came back quickly. Are you okay? Why are you involved with custodial staff? Maya stared at the phone, realizing her mistake. In her emotional state, she had almost blown her cover. She quickly typed back, Sorry, wrong number. Ignore that message. Instead, she approached Carmen directly. Take the money from my purse, she whispered, pulling out $200 in cash. Tell Sandra your sister is covering your shift and you found someone to pay for the missed hours. Carmen stared at the money in shock. Maria, I can't take this. You need... My son is fine and healthy at home. Maya lied smoothly. Your son needs you. Take it. Through tears, Carmen accepted the money and rushed out to be with Miguel. Maya watched her go, then turned to face the questioning stares of her co-workers. How do you have $200 in cash? Rose asked suspiciously. You've been working here for 3 weeks. Maya's mind raced. I've been saving for my mother's medicine. I can wait another week. It was a believable lie, but Maya could see that Rose wasn't entirely convinced. She made a mental note to be more careful about displaying wealth that Maria Santos couldn't possibly have. The rest of the shift was tense. As they cleaned the 17th floor, Maya found herself in the office of Michael Rodriguez, the VP of Human Resources. His computer was still on, and Maya could see an email exchange on the screen about the custodial department. Unable to resist, she glanced at the emails while dusting his desk. What she read made her stomach turn. The exchange was between Michael and Sandra Williams discussing productivity improvements in the custodial department. Michael had suggested implementing stricter attendance policies and reducing the number of sick days available to cleaning staff. His reasoning was chillingly simple. These positions are easily replaceable. Tighter policies will reduce turnover-related paperwork and increase efficiency. Sandra had responded enthusiastically, suggesting they could also reduce the number of cleaning staff by increasing individual workloads. The current staff can handle more floors per person. We're probably overstaffed by 15–20%. Maya felt bile rise in her throat. While executives like David Chen were expensing $1,000 lunches and $3,000 chairs, the HR department was actively looking for ways to make life harder for the lowest-paid employees in the company. She quickly memorized the key details from the emails before moving on to dust the rest of Michael's office. When Lisa came to check on her progress, Maya was visibly shaking with anger. "You okay?" Lisa asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just tired," Maya managed. "This job is harder than I expected." Lisa studied her carefully. "Maria, can I ask you something? And I want an honest answer." Maya's heart started pounding. "Of course. You're not really from Mexico, are you?" The question hit like a thunderbolt. Maya's carefully practiced accent had been slipping more often lately, especially when she was emotional. And tonight's confrontation with Sandra had probably made it even more obvious. "What do you mean?" Maya asked, but she could hear how unconvincing she sounded. "Your hands," Lisa said simply. "They're too soft for someone who's been working manual labor jobs. Your posture is too straight for someone who's spent years cleaning offices. And tonight, when you talked back to Sandra, you sounded like someone who's used to being listened to, not someone who's afraid of losing their job." Maya felt trapped. Lisa was too observant, too smart to be fooled much longer. But she couldn't reveal her true identity without destroying everything she was trying to accomplish. "I had a different job before," Maya said carefully. "Office work. But I lost it when my mother got sick and I missed too much time." It wasn't entirely a lie, and it seemed to satisfy Lisa somewhat. But Maya could see doubt lingering in the other woman's eyes. As they finished their shift and returned to the break room, Maya realized her mission was becoming more complicated than she had anticipated. She was uncovering a culture of callousness and systematic mistreatment that went far beyond simple management oversight. But her growing emotional investment in her coworkers was making it harder to maintain her disguise. Walking to her car in the early morning darkness, Maya pulled out her phone and began typing detailed notes about everything she had witnessed. The email exchange between Michael Rodriguez and Sandra Williams was particularly damning. But she knew that documented evidence would only be part of what was needed to create real change. She was beginning to understand that the problems at Thompson Industries weren't just about broken equipment or unfair policies. They were about a fundamental failure of leadership and empathy that started at the top and trickled down through every level of management. The question was, how could she expose this systemic failure without betraying the trust of people like Carmen, Janet, and Lisa, who had welcomed Maria Santos as one of their own? Maya's phone buzzed with an urgent message from her father as she sat in her car after another exhausting shift. "Board meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. We're discussing the quarterly cost reduction initiatives. Your input would be valuable." She stared at the message, feeling the weight of her double life pressing down on her shoulders. In less than 12 hours, she would sit in a leather chair around a mahogany conference table, discussing budget cuts with executives who had no idea that their decisions were devastating real families. The irony was suffocating. That morning, Maya attended the board meeting as scheduled. The conference room on the 40th floor was a world away from the basement break room where she spent her nights. Crystal water glasses, catered lunch from the city's most expensive restaurant, and presentations full of charts and graphs that reduced human beings to numbers on a spreadsheet. Michael Rodriguez, the VP of Human Resources she had seen in his office just hours earlier, was presenting his efficiency improvements for the custodial department. By implementing stricter attendance policies and optimizing staff allocation, Michael explained to the board, "We can reduce custodial labor costs by approximately 18% annually. That's a savings of $2.3 million per year." Maya's father, Marcus Thompson, nodded approvingly. "Excellent work, Michael. Have you identified any resistance to these changes?" "Minimal," Michael replied smoothly. "The custodial staff understand that these positions are entry-level and easily replaceable. We don't anticipate any significant pushback. Maya felt her hands clench under the table. She watched as the board members, people she had known since childhood, friends of her father who had attended her birthday parties, casually approved policies that would make life miserable for women like Carmen and Janet. Maya, her father said, turning to her, as our newest board member, what are your thoughts on these proposals? All eyes turned to her. Maya felt the weight of the moment, knowing that what she said next would either expose her mission or force her to be complicit in decisions she knew were wrong. I think, Maya said carefully, that we should be very careful about making changes that affect our lowest paid employees without fully understanding the human impact. Board member Robert Harrison, a family friend for 20 years, chuckled. Maya, that's very compassionate of you, but business is business. These people are lucky to have jobs at all in this economy. The casual cruelty of the comment made Maya feel physically ill. She excused herself from the meeting, claiming she needed to review some documents, and spent the afternoon in her office trying to figure out what to do next. That evening, as she prepared for another night shift, Maya noticed something different in the custodial break room. Carmen was back, but her usual cheerful demeanor was gone. She sat quietly in the corner, her eyes red from crying. How is Miguel? Maya asked, sitting beside her. He's okay, Carmen said softly. The surgery went well, but she trailed off, looking around nervously. But what? Sandra pulled me aside when I came in tonight. She said that missing work for Miguel's surgery was my final warning. One more unexcused absence and I'm fired. Maya's blood boiled, but she forced herself to remain calm. Did you explain that it was a medical emergency? She said emergencies don't excuse poor planning, that I should have arranged backup childcare in advance. Carmen's voice cracked. How do you plan for your child breaking his arm? Janet, who had been listening from nearby, shook her head in disgust. It's getting worse every week. Sandra's been different lately, like she's under pressure from somewhere higher up. She is, Lisa said grimly, joining their conversation. I overheard her on the phone with someone from HR yesterday. They're planning to cut staff and increase everyone else's workload. Maya already knew this was true from the emails she had seen, but she pretended to be hearing it for the first time. Cut how many people? Maybe 4 or 5, Lisa said. Which means the rest of us will have to clean extra floors for the same pay. Rose slammed her coffee cup down on the table. This is insane. We're already working as hard as we can. How are we supposed to do more? We don't have a choice, Janet said quietly. None of us can afford to lose this job even if it gets worse. Maya listened to the conversation with growing fury. These women were trapped in a system designed to exploit their vulnerability. They couldn't quit because they needed the health insurance and steady paycheck. But staying meant accepting increasingly unfair treatment. During their shift that night, Maya made a decision that would change everything. While cleaning the 19th floor, she used her master key access, something Maria Santos definitely shouldn't have had, to enter the office of Patricia Wells, the VP of Operations. Maya knew she was taking a huge risk, but she needed concrete evidence of what was happening. Patricia's computer was password protected, but Maya knew from her privileged access as a board member that most executives used predictable passwords related to the company. After 3 attempts, she successfully logged in using Thompson 2024. The same password her father used for most of his accounts. Maya quickly navigated to Patricia's email and began searching for communications about the custodial department. What she found was worse than she had imagined. There was an entire email chain between Patricia, Michael Rodriguez, Sandra Williams, and several other managers discussing what they called Operation Efficiency. The plan was comprehensive and devastating. Reduce custodial staff by 30%, eliminate overtime pay, cut health insurance benefits for part-time employees, and implement a 3-strike policy for any attendance issues. But the most damning part was a message from Patricia to Michael that read, Remember, the key is to make the job conditions difficult enough that the current staff quits voluntarily. That way we avoid severance payments and unemployment claims. Hire younger, more desperate workers who will accept worse conditions. Maya photographed the emails with her phone, her hands shaking with rage. This wasn't just poor management. It was a deliberate strategy to exploit vulnerable workers and force them out without compensation. As she logged out of Patricia's computer and prepared to leave the office, Maya heard footsteps in the hallway. Panic shot through her as she realized someone was approaching. She quickly grabbed her cleaning supplies and tried to look busy dusting Patricia's desk. The office door opened, and Sandra Williams stepped inside. "Maria, what are you doing in here? This office isn't on your cleaning list tonight." Maya's mind raced. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Williams. Lisa asked me to help her catch up because she's running behind." "I thought this office was included." Sandra's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Lisa is working floors 22 through 25 tonight. This is floor 19. Try again." Maya realized she had been caught in a lie, and Sandra clearly suspected something was wrong. The older woman stepped closer, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "I've had my eye on you since your first day. Maria, you ask too many questions, you have too much money for someone in your situation, and now you're sneaking around offices you have no business being in. What's your real story?" Before Maya could answer, Sandra continued. "I think you're either stealing from these offices or you're some kind of corporate spy. Either way, you're done here." Maya's heart pounded as she realized her cover was blown. But instead of backing down, she found herself thinking about Carmen's choice between her son's surgery and her job security. About Janet's broken vacuum cleaner and Carmen's broken refrigerator. About all the women who depended on this job despite how terribly they were treated. "You're right," Maya said, her accent completely gone now. "I am asking questions. Questions like why equipment repair requests are ignored for months while executives spend thousands of dollars on lunch. Questions like why women with sick children are threatened with termination for missing work. Questions like why this company treats its most vulnerable employees like they're disposable." Sandra's face went white. "Who are you?" Maya straightened to her full height, letting go of the submissive posture she had maintained for weeks. "Someone who's going to make sure these women get the treatment they deserve." The confrontation was about to explode into something much bigger than either of them anticipated. Sandra Williams stared at Maya with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. The young woman standing before her bore no resemblance to the timid Maria Santos, who had applied for the cleaning job weeks earlier. Maya's posture was confident, her voice clear and commanding, and her eyes blazed with an authority that Sandra had never seen in a custodial worker. "I'm calling security," Sandra said, reaching for her radio. "You're trespassing in an executive office and you've obviously lied about your identity." "Go ahead," Maya said calmly. "But before you do, you might want to consider what's going to happen when the real Maria Santos story comes out. When people learn about operation efficiency and your plan to force workers to quit by making their jobs unbearable." Sandra's hand froze on her radio. "How do you know about—" "I know about everything," Maya interrupted. "The emails between you and Patricia Wells, the plan to cut staff by 30%, the strategy to hire younger, more desperate workers. I have documentation of all of it." The blood drained from Sandra's face. She sank into Patricia's chair, suddenly looking much older than her years. "Who are you working for? A competitor? The Labor Department? A union?" Maya considered her options. Her original plan had been to complete her undercover investigation and present her findings to her father privately. But Sandra's discovery had forced her hand, and she realized that a quiet resolution might not be enough to protect women like Carmen and Janet. "I'm working for justice," Maya said simply, "and for the women downstairs who trust you to fight for them, not conspire against them." Sandra's expression hardened. "You think you understand what's happening here? This company is under pressure to cut costs. If we don't find savings in the custodial department, they'll just outsource the entire operation to a contractor who pays minimum wage with no benefits. At least this way, some of the women keep their jobs." "At what cost?" Maya shot back. "Carmen almost didn't take her son to the hospital because she was afraid of losing her job. Janet is cleaning with equipment that should have been replaced months ago. Rose is working extra hours for no additional pay because you're already understaffing the department." "That's business," Sandra said. But her voice lacked conviction. "That's not business. That's exploitation." Before Sandra could respond, Maya's phone buzzed with an urgent message from Lisa. "Security guards heading to 19th floor. Sandra called them. Get out now." Maya realized that Sandra must have triggered a silent alarm or sent a message while they were talking. She had perhaps 2 minutes before security arrived. "This conversation isn't over," Maya said, moving quickly toward the door. "Yes, it is," Sandra called after her. "You're fired, and I'm pressing charges for trespassing and theft." Maya paused at the door. Theft of what? The truth? She slipped out of the office and made her way quickly to the stairwell, avoiding the elevators where security would likely be heading. As she descended the stairs, her phone rang. It was Lisa. Maria, where are you? Sandra's telling everyone that you were caught stealing from offices. Security is looking for you. I'm leaving the building, Maya said. But Lisa, I need you to know something. Everything Sandra told you about me being a thief is a lie. I was trying to help you and the others. Help us how? Maya took a deep breath. I can't explain everything right now, but I promise you'll understand soon. In the meantime, tell Carmen, Janet, and Rose to document everything. Every broken equipment request, every time they're forced to work extra hours, every threat about attendance. Write it all down with dates and times. Why? What's going to happen? Change, Maya said firmly. Real change. She ended the call and exited the building through the employee entrance, her mind already racing with plans. Her cover was blown, but she had gathered enough evidence to expose what was happening. The question was how to use that evidence effectively. Sitting in her car in the employee parking garage, Maya called her father. Dad, I need to see you tonight. It's urgent. Marcus Thompson's voice was concerned. Maya, it's 3 a.m. What's wrong? I'll explain when I see you. Can you meet me at your office in an hour? Of course. Are you okay? Maya looked up at the Thompson Industries building towering above her, thinking about the women inside who were probably being questioned by security about her disappearance. I'm fine, but your company has some serious problems that need immediate attention. An hour later, Maya sat across from her father in his executive office, still wearing her custodial uniform. Marcus Thompson looked shocked and confused as his daughter explained her weeks undercover as Maria Santos. You did what? He said, his voice rising. Maya, do you have any idea how dangerous this was? How inappropriate. Inappropriate? Maya's voice was sharp. Dad, your employees are being systematically mistreated and you had no idea it was happening. If that's not inappropriate, I don't know what is. She showed him the photographs of the emails, explained the operation efficiency plan, and described the working conditions she had witnessed. As the evidence mounted, Marcus's expression shifted from anger to shock to something that looked like shame. I had no idea, he said quietly. Michael and Patricia assured me that the cost reductions were being implemented fairly. They lied to you, Maya said. Or maybe you didn't want to look too closely at how the savings were being achieved. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the email printouts. What do you want me to do? Fire them, Maya said without hesitation. Michael Rodriguez, Patricia Wells, Sandra Williams, and anyone else who was involved in this. Then implement real changes to protect the custodial workers. Maya, you can't just fire executives based on what? Documented evidence of them conspiring to exploit vulnerable employees? Dad, this isn't just about being a better employer. If this gets out publicly, it could destroy the company's reputation. Marcus looked up sharply. Are you threatening to go public with this? Maya met her father's gaze steadily. I'm saying that the truth has a way of coming out eventually. You can either get ahead of it by taking decisive action, or you can wait for a labor lawsuit, a media investigation, or a whistleblower complaint to force your hand. They sat in silence for several minutes while Marcus processed what his daughter had told him. Finally, he picked up his phone. Patricia, I know it's early, but I need you and Michael Rodriguez in my office immediately. Yes, I said immediately. As they waited for the executives to arrive, Maya felt a mixture of satisfaction and nervousness. She had set something in motion that couldn't be stopped, but she wasn't sure what the consequences would be for the women who had trusted Maria Santos. What about Sandra Williams?
Maya asked.
She knows my real identity. Marcus considered this. We'll deal with Sandra. But first I want to hear what Patricia and Michael have to say when confronted with this evidence. 20 minutes later, Patricia Wells and Michael Rodriguez sat uncomfortably in the CEO's office, clearly confused about why they had been summoned at 4 a.m. Maya had stepped into the adjoining conference room, where she could hear the conversation through the partially open door. I have some questions about the custodial department reorganization, Marcus began calmly. Of course, Patricia said. The efficiency improvements are ahead of schedule. We should see significant cost savings by the end of the quarter. Tell me about operation efficiency, Marcus said. The silence that followed was deafening. Maya could practically feel the panic radiating from the two executives. I'm not sure I know what you're referring to, Michael finally said, his voice carefully neutral. Marcus placed printouts of the email exchanges on his desk. Really? Because it seems like you've been quite involved in planning to make working conditions so unbearable that employees quit voluntarily to avoid paying severance. The confrontation that followed would determine not just the fate of Patricia,
Wells and Michael Rodriguez.
but the future of every custodial worker in the Thompson Industries building. The silence in Marcus Thompson's office stretched uncomfortably as Patricia Wells and Michael Rodriguez stared at the email printouts on the desk. Maya could see their faces through the crack in the conference room door, and she watched as the color drained from their cheeks. "Sir, I can explain," Patricia began, but Marcus cut her off with a raised hand. "The explanation is right here in black and white," Marcus said, his voice cold. "Operation efficiency. Making conditions so unbearable that workers quit voluntarily. Hiring younger, more desperate workers. Did you think I would never find out?" Michael Rodriguez cleared his throat nervously. "Mr. Thompson, you have to understand the pressure we're under to reduce costs. The board has been very clear about the need for—" "The board," Marcus interrupted, "never authorized a campaign of psychological warfare against our lowest-paid employees. What you've done here isn't cost reduction. It's systematic harassment designed to force people out of jobs they desperately need." Patricia tried a different approach. "Sir, if we don't implement these measures, we'll be forced to outsource the custodial services entirely. At least this way some employees keep their positions. With deliberately broken equipment, impossible attendance policies, and the constant threat of termination for having family emergencies." Marcus's voice was rising now. "Patricia, I've known you for 8 years. I promoted you myself. How did you become someone who could write an email about making people's lives miserable for profit?" Maya felt a surge of pride in her father's response, but she also knew the real test would be what happened next. Firing Patricia and Michael would send a strong message, but it wouldn't be enough to undo the damage they had caused. "Both of you are terminated, effective immediately," Marcus continued. "Security will escort you from the building, and you'll receive information about your severance packages from HR. But understand this. If any word of this conversation or the circumstances of your dismissal reaches the media or our competitors, you'll be hearing from our legal department." After Patricia and Michael were escorted out, Maya rejoined her father in his office. "That's a start," she said, "but we need to do more." Marcus rubbed his temples. "What do you suggest?" "First, Sandra Williams needs to go. She was the primary architect of the harassment campaign. Second, we need to promote someone from within the custodial staff to supervise the department, someone who actually understands what the job requires. And third," Marcus asked, "we implement real changes, new equipment, fair scheduling policies, increased wages, and a genuine open-door policy for addressing concerns. Most importantly, we need to rebuild trust with the workers." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Maya, there's something I need to ask you. When you were undercover, did you do anything that could expose the company to legal liability? Access any systems you shouldn't have? Take any documents?" Maya hesitated. She had used her board member access to enter Patricia's office and review confidential emails. Technically, she had authorization to access those areas, but using it while undercover as Maria Santos was ethically complicated. "I may have stretched some boundaries to gather evidence," she admitted, "but everything I found was documentation of actual wrongdoing." "We'll deal with that if it becomes an issue," Marcus said. "Right now, I'm more concerned about damage control." Over the next week, Thompson Industries underwent a transformation that shocked everyone from the executive suite to the basement break room. Sandra Williams was terminated and replaced by Janet Mitchell, the experienced cleaner who had shown such kindness to Maya on her first night. Carmen Santos was promoted to assistant supervisor and given a significant raise that allowed her to work fewer hours while earning more money. New cleaning equipment arrived within days, along with a renovation of the break room that included a working refrigerator, comfortable seating, and a coffee machine that actually functioned. The 3-strike attendance policy was replaced with a system that recognized the realities of working families, including emergency childcare provisions and flexible scheduling. But the most significant change was the announcement that Marcus Thompson himself would be conducting monthly meetings with representatives from every department, including custodial services, to address concerns and suggestions directly. The news media eventually caught wind of the story, though Maya's role in uncovering the problems was never revealed publicly. Thompson Industries was praised for its proactive approach to employee welfare, and several other companies in the area began reviewing their own policies toward service workers. 3 months after Maya's undercover mission ended, she returned to the basement break room for Janet's promotion party. The atmosphere was completely different from what she remembered. The women were laughing, discussing weekend plans, and talking about their children without fear that family obligations would cost them their jobs. "You know," Lisa said, approaching Maya with a smile, "Maria Santos was the strangest new employee we ever had. Showed up for exactly 3 weeks, asked more questions than anyone in the history of the department, mysteriously disappeared one night, and then suddenly everything got better." Maya smiled. Maybe she was just lucky to work with such amazing women who deserved better treatment. "Maybe," Lisa said, her eyes twinkling with knowledge she couldn't quite prove. "Or maybe she was exactly who we needed, exactly when we needed her." Carmen joined their conversation holding a photo of Miguel in his soccer uniform. "However it happened, I'm just grateful. Miguel asks me every day when he can meet the mysterious Maria, who helped us when he got hurt. I keep telling him that some angels prefer to stay anonymous." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm sure Maria would be happy to know Miguel is doing well." As the party continued around them, Maya reflected on what she had learned during her time as Maria Santos. The experience had changed her understanding of leadership, privilege, and responsibility in ways that no business school course ever could have. She had discovered that being invisible gave you a unique perspective on how power really operated in organizations. The executives making decisions about custodial policies had never cleaned an office, never worried about choosing between a child's medical needs and a paycheck, never felt the helplessness of having their basic dignity ignored by people who controlled their livelihood. More importantly, she had learned that real change required more than good intentions or company policies. It required leaders who were willing to see their organizations through the eyes of their most vulnerable employees, and who understood that treating people with dignity wasn't just morally right, it was essential for building a company that could truly thrive. As Maya prepared to leave the party, Janet approached her with an envelope. "This is for Maria Santos," Janet said with a knowing smile. "From all of us. It's a thank you card, and inside there's enough money to help with her mother's medical bills. We all contributed." Maya opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a card signed by every member of the custodial staff, thanking Maria for her courage and kindness. The money, several $100s collected from women who had very little to spare, was accompanied by a note that read, "For Maria, who taught us that standing up for each other makes us all stronger." Walking to her car, Maya realized that her transformation from privileged CEO's daughter to undercover cleaner had taught her the most valuable lesson of her life. True leadership meant using your power to lift others up, not to maintain systems that kept them down. The following Monday, Maya returned to her role on the board of directors with a new mission. She would spend the rest of her career ensuring that Thompson Industries became a model for how large corporations could treat all their employees with dignity and respect. And in the basement break room, the women who had once lived in fear of arbitrary firings and impossible policies continued their work with renewed hope, never quite knowing that their mysterious coworker Maria Santos had been an angel in disguise, one who had used her privileged position to transform their lives forever. The story of Maya Thompson's undercover mission became a legend within Thompson Industries, whispered among employees as proof that sometimes when you least expect it, someone is watching out for the workers who make everything possible but receive the least recognition. Half the management staff had been replaced, policies had been revolutionized, and the company's culture had been fundamentally transformed. But perhaps most importantly, a young woman who could have lived her entire life insulated from the struggles of working families had chosen instead to use her privilege as a force for justice. In the end, Maya learned that true power wasn't about having authority over others. It was about using whatever advantages you possessed to create opportunities for those who had fewer advantages than yourself.